In her last life, he had died in a sea of flames to save her. Amidst the explosion, his white shirt and face were smeared with ash as he knelt on one knee. "Tansy, in our next life, I'll find you right away. You have to promise you'll be my girlfriend again." She had been prepared for them to die together, but at the last moment, he pushed her out, and the flames consumed him alone. When she opened her eyes again, she was back before the explosion had ever happened. On a rainy night, she brought a strange man home, only to see the disgust on Fletcher's face. "Fletcher Hughes, are you some kind of leech I can't shake off? Or do you just have no self-respect? Do you enjoy being cursed at by women?" He stood in the rain all night and fell ill the next day. His assistant begged her to go see him, but she remained unmoved. Later, she married another man. For the sake of her husband and her family's interests, she set a trap to ruin him. The whole world knew how terribly she treated him. But only she knew that, in this new life, all she wanted was for him to live. After the breakup, Tansy Thorne never expected to see Fletcher Hughes again so soon. That night, at a friend's birthday party, the first thing she saw upon entering was him on the sofa. He was much thinner, half his body cloaked in shadow, a stark contrast to the lively chaos around him. Tansy sat down in the corner farthest from him. After a few rounds of drinks, everyone started playing Truth or Dare. The first turn fell to Tansy. The person next to her poured a full glass of wine, pushed it in front of her, and asked, "Truth or Dare?" Just as Tansy was about to speak, the man across from her reached out a long arm and took the wine glass. "I'll drink for her." She looked up, frowning. "Fletcher Hughes, what's it to you? I choose truth." Hearing this, the crowd began to jeer and ask their questions. "The last time. You know, when was it? Which you know? Come on, Miss Thorne, don't play innocent." A wave of laughter filled the room. Tansy's expression didn't change. "Last night." Fletcher clenched his jaw and drained the glass of wine in front of him. "Where? In the car." "Getting it on in the car, huh? How thrilling." The crowd grew even more unruly. A sense of irritation simmered within Tansy, yet her tone became firmer. "Go on. What else do you want to know? I'll tell you everything." "With who? Was it that toy boy?" "It was him." "He looks a bit skinny. Is he any good?" "Why wouldn't he be? He's very good." "How good? Give us the details." "At least 3 times a night, and he has stamina." "Is that good enough for you?" Screams and catcalls erupted. No one noticed when Fletcher got up or when he left. Tansy slowly drew back her gaze, a dull, persistent ache spreading through her chest. The questions continued, but she didn't answer another word. "You guys carry on, I'm going to the restroom." She stood up and strode out of the private room. Fletcher was long gone from the hallway. Tansy looked away, a self-mocking smile touching her lips. She shouldn't have followed him out in the first place. It was good that he left. If he hadn't, all her efforts from this period might have been for nothing. Today was, in fact, a special day. In her previous life, Fletcher hadn't attended this birthday party. When Tansy had returned home late that night, she found heart-shaped candles meticulously arranged on the lawn in front of her house. Amidst the romantic candlelight, he had walked towards her. He knelt on one knee and slipped the engagement ring onto her finger. "Tansy, will you marry me?" It was late when she returned home. As the car approached the community gate, the driver slammed on the brakes. Tansy opened her eyes. "What's wrong?" the driver stammered. "Miss Thorne, it's Mr. Hughes." Tansy turned to look out the window. Fletcher was leaning against his black Bentley, smoking. The ash on his cigarette grew long and fell onto his hand, but he seemed not to feel the burn. Tansy looked away and ordered the driver to keep going. But Fletcher was already striding over, and he knocked twice on the car window. The window rolled down, revealing the beautiful face of the woman inside. She was leaning against a strange man. Upon seeing him, her eyes filled with undisguised disgust. "Fletcher Hughes, are you some kind of leech I can't shake off? Or do you just have no self-respect? Do you enjoy being cursed at by women?" The driver didn't dare to breathe. This was the founder of the mighty Tang Nyan Tech, a titan who could command the winds and rains of the business world. He had seen plenty of people fawning over Fletcher Hughes, but he had never seen anyone humiliate him the way Tansy Thorne did. And yet, Fletcher never once got angry. The two had once been a golden couple, their loving 5-year relationship a frequent topic in the gossip columns. Until recently, when Tansy was photographed entering a 5-star hotel late at night with a young toy boy on her arm. From then on, Fletcher had been branded a cuckold. As a man himself, the driver couldn't understand how Fletcher could remain calm or how he could refuse to break up with her. "Tansy, get out of the car." "Fletcher, are you blind? I'm taking a man home tonight. Can't you see what I'm about to do?" "Tansy." Before Fletcher could finish, Tansy had already rolled up the window. The car drove off without a second thought, Fletcher's figure shrinking into a blurry speck in the rearview mirror. Tansy stared at the mirror until her eyes ached, but she didn't look away. The man beside her suddenly touched her waist. Tansy slapped him across the face. "Get off me. Touch me again, and I'll push you out of this car." The man sullenly retracted his hand. What a strange client, he thought. She paid him 5 times the usual rate just to act out a scene. Honestly, with a face like hers, he would have done it for free. Once inside the villa, Tansy instructed the man, "You'll sleep in the guest room at the end of the hall. Leave tomorrow morning, but not too early." Then she told a maid, "Leave the lights on in the master bedroom. Don't turn them off until dawn." She was deliberately creating the illusion for Fletcher that she was busy all night with the other man. She had to see the act through to the end. She wasn't sure how long Fletcher would wait this time. But the first time she brought a man home, he had stood there until daybreak. It had been raining that night, too. Fletcher had been drenched all night and fell ill the next day. His assistant had called, saying he was delirious with fever, muttering her name in his dreams. He had begged her to go see him, just for a moment. Even then, Tansy hadn't gone. After that, Fletcher's assistant shot her a dirty look every time they met, praying for the day his boss would come to his senses. The whole world saw how heartless Tansy was to Fletcher. Only he, it seemed, was completely oblivious. In the middle of the night, Tansy woke with a start. Fletcher, explosions, soaring flames, a deafening roar. The scenes from her past life flashed before her eyes like a movie, frame by frame. The man's hands pushing her out of the inferno, while he himself was devoured by the monstrous flames. Tansy buried her face in her hands in anguish, tears streaming silently through her fingers. She had been reborn, but the memory of her past life was still a heart-wrenching, bone-deep pain. In her last life, Fletcher had died for her. This time, she could not let that tragedy repeat itself. Tansy threw off the covers and ran to the window, pulling back a corner of the curtain. The black Bentley was still there. That fool, Fletcher, he was still waiting. Was he going to wait as long as the lights were on? Tansy's heart ached until it was numb. Trembling, she dialed his number. The phone rang only once before it was answered. Fletcher's voice was indescribably weary. "Tansy?" Hearing him call her name, Tansy's tears began to flow freely. "Fletcher, are you ever going to give up? Why haven't you left? Do you have any idea how annoying you are? Women hate clingy men. Have you no dignity?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Fletcher said only one thing. "Tansy, I'll leave after you fall asleep. I'm worried you won't sleep well." Tansy bit her lip to keep from sobbing. "Fletcher, leave now. Do you hear me?" She hung up after saying that, not having the courage to hear his reply. Through the dark window, she stood and watched him for as long as his car remained parked downstairs. Finally, the black sedan drove off into the faint light of dawn. All the strength drained from Tansy's body, and she collapsed to the floor. Her silver bracelet fell to the ground, and she immediately crawled over to pick it up. She carefully brushed off the dust. It was the first gift Fletcher had ever given her. Back then, Fletcher had been poor. His parents had passed away early, leaving him with only a grandmother who suffered from a chronic illness. On the first day of university, Tansy had spotted him in the crowd. He was wearing worn, faded clothes, standing among a group of well-dressed upperclassmen. He stood out. He stood out for his striking good looks, and he stood out for his shabby poverty. Boys came and went around her, but Tansy didn't spare them a glance. She walked right up to Fletcher. "Excuse me, could you help me with my suitcase?" 6 months after they met, Fletcher's grandmother was hospitalized. He took on 3 part-time jobs, but refused to accept the money Tansy offered him. Left with no other choice, Tansy could only wait for him at the university every day. No matter how late Fletcher finished work, he would always see her the moment he reached the men's dormitory. The winter wind was cold, cutting across Fletcher's face like a knife. His eyes were misty, but his heart felt a warmth he had never known before. He took off his own scarf and wrapped it around Tansy's neck. "It's too cold. Go get some rest. Don't come here anymore." The scent of mint from his scarf filled her nose. She shook her head stubbornly. I want to see you every day." That night, Fletcher stood in the cold wind, looking at her for a long time. Not long after, while waiting for him, Tansy was caught in the rain and developed pneumonia, landing her in the hospital. When Fletcher heard the news, he rushed to the hospital immediately. At her bedside, the man who hadn't shed a tear when his critically ill grandmother was wheeled into the ICU suddenly buried his head and began to cry softly. Tansy's eyes widened, and the confession she had kept hidden in her heart for so long slipped out. "Fletcher Hughes, I like you. I've liked you since the first moment I saw you. Can I be your girlfriend?" Fletcher froze. After a long moment, he looked up. "You fool! A confession is something a guy should do." He took a small box from his pocket, opened it, and revealed a silver bracelet inside. He carefully fastened it onto her wrist. "What's this?" "The first gift for my girlfriend. Tansy, I'll make money in the future and buy you even better things." Tansy came from a wealthy family and had received countless bracelets throughout her life. Some were from her family, others from boys who admired her. But none were as beautiful and dazzling as the one from Fletcher. She couldn't help but lean in and kiss him. Then she hugged him tightly, pressing her face against his chest, and joyfully announced to the world, "Fletcher Hughes is mine." Fletcher did not break his promise. After graduating from university, he founded the renowned Tang Nyan Tech. In just 3 years, he went from an unknown figure to a tech upstart worth billions. The media later dug up that the name Tang Nyan Tech was a combination of his and his girlfriend's names. Tang came first, and Nyan came second. The name Tansy Thorne became the object of envy for socialites and heiresses. News reports said that Tansy had bet on the right horse in her youth. That was why, after Fletcher achieved success, she reaped his unwavering love, a love for one person, for one lifetime. But Tansy knew in her heart that regardless of whether Fletcher became successful or not, he was the only one for her in this life. In their previous life, they had a lavish wedding. On the eve of the wedding, Fletcher spent a fortune at an auction. He bought the one and only heart, a top-tier blue diamond that was all the rage at the time. He gave it to Tansy as an accessory for the wedding. Facing the media, he openly declared his love for her. "Tansy Thorne is the only woman I, Fletcher Hughes, have ever loved, am currently in love with, and will continue to love deeply in the future. I want to give her the most eternal promise. If jewelry can do that, I'll buy jewelry. If something else can, I'll do that too." The media teased, "What if Miss Thorne wants the moon from the sky?" The usually serious man actually smiled for the camera. His eyes and tone were incredibly certain. "I said it before. Whatever Tansy wants, I, Fletcher Hughes, will do it without a second thought." Tansy gently caressed the silver bracelet on her wrist. No matter how well cared for, silver items still tarnish over time. But Fletcher's love and promises for her had not. In her previous life, just moments before the explosion, he was still by her side. He had always been something of a neat freak, but then his white shirt and face were smeared with ash. He knelt on one knee, holding her hand tightly. "Tansy, in our next life, I'll find you right away. You have to promise you'll be my girlfriend again." Tansy threw herself into his arms and nodded. In that moment, the fires of hell didn't seem so terrifying. She was prepared for them to die together. But she never imagined that Fletcher would push her out of the inferno at the last moment, leaving himself to be consumed by the monstrous flames of the explosion. Recalling that scene, Tansy still felt a pain so sharp it was hard to breathe. Reborn into this life, she absolutely could not let him die for her again. She wanted him to live a good life. Even if they couldn't be together in this lifetime, she was willing to accept that. When Tansy went downstairs, her parents were sitting in the living room, several photos spread out on the table. Her father, Alaric Thorne, put down his newspaper. "You're just in time. Pick one of these men and let's settle your marriage. You've wasted too much time on that Hughes boy." Fletcher Hughes was a billionaire, a good match in the eyes of outsiders, but he still wasn't good enough for the Thorne family. Any one of the men in the photos was a scion of a family with at least 3 generations of wealth. Their family foundations were deep. Fletcher, a newcomer, simply couldn't compare. In her previous life, their marriage had not received the Thorne family's approval, but Tansy had insisted on marrying him anyway. This time, she would not make the same choice. Tansy casually pointed to the photo on top. Him, the second son of the Montague family, the second daughter of the Thorne family. a perfect match. This Miles Montague had a notorious reputation as a playboy. Rumor had it his mistress was already 5 months pregnant. Her mother, Eleonora, seemed to have reservations, but her father made the final decision. Then, it's the second young Master Montague. The news of the marriage between the Montague and Thorne families quickly spread. The wedding was set for 3 months later. On the day of the wedding dress fitting, Miles Montague only stayed in the shop for 10 minutes before a phone call summoned him away. Her older sister, Sylvia Thorne, watched him leave and reminded Tansy, "You should start managing that girl he keeps on the side. He's this blatant before you're even married. Once you are, he might not even bother coming home." Tansy looked at her reflection in the mirror. If he doesn't come home, he doesn't come home. His legs are attached to his body. Who can tie him down? A staff member suggested. "Miss Thorne, the dress you're wearing is the most conservative style in our store. We actually have an off-the-shoulder design. Your shoulder line is so beautiful, why don't you? No need to try anything else. This one is fine." The off-the-shoulder design was indeed the most suitable for her. In her previous life, she had worn a dress just like that when she married Fletcher. She still remembered how, when she came out in the wedding dress, Fletcher's eyes had been filled with undisguised awe. He had hugged her from behind, tenderly kissing her cheek. "Tansy, you're the most beautiful bride in the world." Tansy had placed a finger on his lips, reminding him to be quiet or the other brides might get upset. "What's wrong with complimenting my own wife?" Tansy smiled bitterly. The most beautiful wedding dress should be worn for the man you love most. In this life, she no longer had that chance. After the fitting, as she was leaving, the large screen in the shopping mall was broadcasting financial news. Tansy saw Fletcher's face. She hadn't seen him since that night at the club. Seeing him on the news now, she only felt that he looked even more haggard. In her previous life, the Fletcher on camera, though still a man of few words, always had a vibrant spirit in his eyes. This time, his entire being seemed muted. Tang Nyan Tech's performance was reaching new heights, with good news pouring in. He, the founder, had become a sought-after figure. But throughout the entire interview, he didn't crack a single smile. At the end of the interview, the host asked him a personal question. "CEO Hughes, there are rumors that Tang Nyan Tech is named after you and your first love. Are you still in contact?" Fletcher looked straight at the camera. "She will forever be the person I, Fletcher Hughes, love most in this life. Tansy, let's go." Sylvia returned from the restroom and affectionately linked her arm with Tansy's. As Tansy walked out, Fletcher's face was an indelible image in her mind. Actually, she should be happy for him. Even without her, he was still constantly climbing higher. He had a brilliant and splendid life ahead of him. It shouldn't be ruined because of her. The two had just walked out of the mall when Preston Vance arrived to pick them up. Preston was Sylvia's husband and Tansy's brother-in-law. "Sylvia, are you two done shopping?" "Preston, didn't you say you were busy today and couldn't pick us up?" "No matter how busy I am, my wife's business is the most important." Preston Vance was a famously good husband. But looking at this family-loving, wife-protecting man, Tansy only felt a sense of irony. In her previous life, it was Preston who had brought ruin to the Thorne family. Ambitious and ruthless, Preston had emptied the company's assets after taking over the Thorne Group. He had even harbored the vicious intent to eradicate the Thorne family completely. "Tansy, what are you spacing out for? Get in the car." Sylvia's voice broke through Tansy's thoughts. Tansy smiled at her sister. Okay, this time she had to stop Preston. She couldn't let the tragedy of her previous life happen again. On the way back, Tansy asked Sylvia, "Sister, you and brother-in-law have been married for almost 5 years. Have you thought about having children?" Sylvia stopped walking. "Tansy, I haven't told anyone else this, but your brother-in-law really loves children. It's just that I can't have them." Tansy was stunned. Sylvia couldn't have children. She had never heard about this in her previous life, not even at the very end. It took Tansy a moment to find her voice. Then, brother-in-law, a smile touched Sylvia's lips. "Your brother-in-law is very good to me. He said he wants to be with me even if we don't have children. But that just makes me feel like I owe him even more." Tansy couldn't process it for a moment. Preston would rather not have children than be without Sylvia. Did that mean he had feelings for his wife? Preston had already caught up to them with long strides. "Sylvia, what are you and Tansy talking about?" Nothing, just discussing the ways of marriage. Tansy's going to be a bride soon, too. Preston suddenly looked at Tansy. By the way, Tansy, since your sister brought it up, there's something I've always been curious about, though I'm not sure if I should ask. Tansy looked at him calmly. Go ahead, brother-in-law, Preston smiled. It's nothing, really. It's just, seeing how deep your feelings were for Fletcher Hughes, I was wondering why you suddenly changed your mind and decided to marry the second young master of the Montague family. Tansy was frank. It's no secret that the Thorne family looks down on Fletcher. In any case, from now on, Fletcher Hughes has nothing to do with the Thorne family. Preston, look at you, why bring this up out of the blue? Yes, it's all my fault. I really know how to touch a sore spot. Preston and Sylvia flirted, quickly walking ahead of Tansy. Watching their backs, Tansy took out her phone and sent a text message. Help me run a background check on someone. My brother-in-law, Preston Vance. The day before the wedding, the Thorne family living room was piled high with wedding gifts. As Tansy came downstairs, she saw a slender figure sitting on the sofa from a distance. She stopped in her tracks. Dressed in a women's Armani suit that accentuated her curves, Miranda Quill looked professional and elegant, with no trace of the poor student she once was. She was the CFO of Tang Nyan Tech and Fletcher's junior from university. Over the years, countless people had tried to poach Miranda, but she had remained steadfastly by Fletcher's side. Tansy, long time no see. Miranda put down her cup and stood up. Tansy looked at her from a distance and got straight to the point. The maid said you came to deliver a wedding gift, but I don't remember sending you an invitation. You're right, I wasn't invited. I'm not here on my own behalf today, but on behalf of all of Tang Nyan Tech. As she spoke, Miranda took a delicate little box from her bag and placed it on the table. This is a wedding gift from Tang Nyan Tech. Tansy, everyone at the company is happy that you're getting married, because their founder is finally free. Now that you're married, be a good wife and mother at home. Don't go out and wreck anyone else's life. On behalf of everyone at Tang Nyan Tech, I wish you and Mr. Montague a deep and loving marriage, and may you have a child soon. Miranda's smile seemed to be laced with poison. Tansy knew that Miranda hated her. Not just Miranda, but everyone at Tang Nyan Tech, everyone around Fletcher, hated her. It was she who had pulled the lofty golden boy down from his pedestal. As long as he wasn't associated with the name Tansy Thorne, Fletcher Hughes was brilliant and without weakness. It was she who had made him an object of ridicule for his competitors. Tansy's eyelashes trembled. Perhaps Miranda Quill's love for Fletcher was no less than her own. I'll accept the gift. Tell Fletcher Hughes that I have nothing to do with him anymore. The ocean is vast for the fish to leap. I wish him a brilliant future. On the day of the wedding, a light drizzle began to fall early in the morning. Tansy stood by the window, watching the raindrops slide down the glass, leaving streaks behind. Miss Thorne, it's windy outside. You're dressed so lightly, please be careful not to catch a cold. The makeup artist draped a shawl over her shoulders. Tansy closed the window and turned to face the full-length mirror. In the mirror, she was clad in white gauze, her makeup exquisite, but her eyes were as calm as a dry well. She was getting married. The groom wasn't Fletcher, so it didn't seem to matter who she married. As the car drove out of the Thorne estate, Tansy saw a figure in the rain. He was soaked to the bone. Bodyguards formed a human wall in front of him, preventing him from getting any closer. But he was still shouting, in the direction of her car. A sourness rose in Tansy's nose, and hot tears rolled down her cheeks. Stop the car. Miss Thorne, we're going to be late for the ceremony. Tansy, it's raining outside, you're not wearing enough. Oh, Tansy. Tansy pushed open the car door and got out. She ran forward, holding the hem of her wedding dress. The rain soaked her hair and stained her white skirt. She ran breathlessly to the bodyguards and slapped one of them across the face. Useless, you can't even stop one person, and you didn't even think to give him an umbrella. If something happens to him, the Thorne family will be held responsible. Tansy. Tansy turned her head, her gaze passing through the crowd and meeting Fletcher's. He had lost even more weight, and a faint stubble shadowed his chin. He, who was usually so meticulous about his appearance, now looked disheveled. The rain had soaked his shirt, the fabric clinging to his chest, revealing the clear outline of his bones. He was so tall. How much weight had he lost these past days? The defensive wall in Tansy's heart completely crumbled. Fletcher Hughes, are you crazy? Can't you see how hard it's raining? Do you have to come and bring bad luck on my wedding day? Do you think I'd be sad if you soaked yourself to death? I wouldn't. I'd just forget you in a heartbeat. Fletcher Hughes, leave right now if you don't. I'm calling the police, but Fletcher just smiled at her. Tansy, I had a dream last night. I dreamed you married me. You called me Mr. Hughes and I called you Mrs. Hughes. When I woke up, I thought to myself, I wish I could live in that dream forever. Tansy's tears streamed down, mixing with the rain. That wasn't a dream. It had really happened between them. In their past life, on their wedding night, they had laughed and joked just like that. She had repeatedly kissed his Adam's apple, smiling as she called him Mr. Hughes. He had held her hand and kissed her lips. Mrs. Hughes, you're mine now. It was late September, and the weather had already begun to cool. The wind carried a taste of autumn's desolation. Tansy didn't remember how she had left Fletcher that day. She only remembered the rain, bone-chillingly cold. She had only stood in the rain for a short while, but on her wedding night she fell seriously ill. And Fletcher? Tansy didn't know. She later heard from the bodyguards that on that day he had refused their umbrella. He hadn't let his assistant drive him either. He had just walked, step by step, into the vast, pouring rain. A week after the wedding, Tansy's cold had cleared up. That night, Miles Montague stumbled into her room, drunk. Tansy. He walked up behind her and leaned in, trying to kiss her cheek. Tansy raised her hand to block him. Miles Montague, I have something to say to you. Whatever it is, we can talk about it after we've taken care of business. Tansy, you still owe me a wedding night. Miles Montague, the woman you're keeping on the side is named Linda Holt. She's a freshman at the Art Academy and is almost 8 months pregnant. You had me investigated? Miles frowned. So what if you know? What man doesn't have a fledgling mistress? Tansy, don't think you can use this as an excuse to refuse your wifely duties. Tansy looked at him, her expression blank. Miles Montague, if you don't want what I'm about to say to be exposed, you'd better respect my wishes. Linda Holt is 16 years old this year. You started keeping her 3 years ago when she was 13. 13 years old. Below the legal age of consent. Regardless of whether she consented back then, you have committed a crime. Don't try to fool me. Miles threw out the line and walked out to make a phone call. He returned 5 minutes later. He slammed the door against the wall with a loud bang. Tansy Thorne, you're ruthless. On the surface, you married me, but in reality, you were just looking for a puppet, weren't you? You went to all this trouble to keep me from touching you. Who are you saving yourself for? Don't tell me it's that ex-boyfriend of yours, Fletcher Hughes. Too bad. Fletcher Hughes's reputation is about to be ruined. Tomorrow, the whole world will see his sex scandal. Tansy's hand froze. She looked up at him. Miles, what are you talking about? You really are in the dark, Miles said with a smug look. How much of the pie has Fletcher's little company taken from everyone else? Do you think people will just let him dominate the market? He's just some poor boy. How can he stand against the combined forces of the established elite families? Tonight, in the presidential suite at the top of the Peninsula Hotel, several families have teamed up to prepare a grand gift for him. Tansy shot to her feet. Miles, are you serious? Miles sneered. If you don't believe me, just read the entertainment headlines in tomorrow's paper. Without a second thought, Tansy immediately headed for the door. Watching her leave, Miles took out his phone and made a call. Get a paparazzo to squat outside the Peninsula Hotel. I want some eye-catching photos of my new wife. Tansy rushed to the top floor of the Peninsula Hotel. The door to the presidential suite was tightly closed. Without thinking, she immediately started knocking. A hoarse male voice came from inside. Who is it? It was Fletcher. He didn't sound like his usual self. He seemed disoriented. Remembering what Miles had said, Tansy knocked even harder. Room service, open the door opened a crack, and a man's hand reached out and pulled her inside. The lights were off in the room, but the cool moonlight streamed in through the glass windows, casting a silver glow on the floor. Fletcher twisted her arm and pinned her against the wall from behind. Who sent you? The Chin family? The Dew family? Or the Thorne family? Speak, Tansy froze. Did Fletcher mean that the Thorne family was also involved in tonight's setup? The lights suddenly flickered on. A woman's figure emerged from nowhere, rushed over, and slapped Tansy hard across the face. You bitch, who paid you to drug him? Where's the hidden camera on you? Hand it over. Do you have any idea you almost killed him? It was Miranda Quill. She reached out to grab Tansy, who stumbled and fell to the floor. Fletcher saw her face, froze for a second, and then rushed over to help her up. "Tansy, how can it be you?" Hearing his words, Miranda also looked at the woman on the floor. The sight made her even more furious. "CEO Hughes, can't you see? She's in on it with them. I told you the Thorne family was involved in this. I never thought Alaric would even use his own daughter as bait." "Shut up," Fletcher snapped at her. "Miranda, you'd better remember your place. I haven't settled the score with you for that slap. If you dare to slander her again, she's not wrong." Tansy cut him off. She looked up, her eyes devoid of any emotion. "Fletcher, we knew you wouldn't be so easy to fool. To be honest, it wasn't my father who pushed me into this. I volunteered. Everyone knows that you, Fletcher Hughes, still have feelings for me, your ex-girlfriend. Other women might not have been able to trick you, but with me in the picture, the chances of success were much higher." Fletcher stared at her, the corners of his eyes turning slightly red. "Why? Tansy, tell me, why would you do this?" In that instant, Tansy felt as if she were seeing the Fletcher of years ago. The big boy who had sobbed uncontrollably at her bedside, his whole body trembling. How her heart had ached for him then. She had held him tight, kissed him, comforted him. She had wished she could rip out her own heart and give it to him whole. To this day, she was still willing to give him everything she had, as long as he could live safely. Tansy gave a light, airy laugh. "Why, Fletcher, don't you know the answer yourself? Your company has had too great an impact on the chip industry. You've taken nearly half the market share from several giants. The Thorne and Montague families are among them. I had to act for the sake of the people I love." Fletcher's lips turned pale. "The people you love? Are you referring to the Thorne family or Miles Montague?" Tansy turned her face away, her profile cold. "Both. Miles is my husband. Who else would I love?" Miranda's eyes were red with anger. "Tansy, are you even human? Don't you know why the company is called Tang Nyan Tech? In CEO Hughes's mind, the company was never just his. Your name, Tansy, even comes before his. How could you be so cruel? You won't be happy until you see Tang Nyan Tech go bankrupt." "Miranda Quill, get out." "CEO Hughes, didn't you hear me? Miranda, if you don't obey my orders, I won't keep you. You can submit your resignation to HR tonight." In all these years, Tansy had never seen Miranda cry. But at this moment, tears streamed down her face. Miranda quickly wiped away her tears. "CEO Hughes, I won't resign. I'm sorry, I overstepped tonight. I'll leave now, but I beg you, don't trust this woman anymore. She'll really be the death of you." With that, Miranda left. Tansy tried to stand up. Fletcher came to help her, but she pushed him away. "Fletcher, don't touch me. Tansy." She finally managed to get to her feet, but her legs gave way, and she almost fell again. He instinctively reached out to catch her, but his hand stopped in mid-air and slowly fell back to his side. She turned to leave, but he caught up and grabbed her wrist. As she turned, he pulled her into his arms. Tansy's back was pressed against his chest. She could feel his rapid, unnatural breathing, and his body temperature felt like he had a fever. "Fletcher, are you sick?" "No." "Then what's wrong with you?" "They drugged me." Tansy's body stiffened, and she instinctively tried to struggle free, but Fletcher held her even tighter. He buried his face in the crook of her neck, taking a deep breath of her scent. "Tansy, don't go. I won't touch you. I've already taken a cold shower." His tone was like that of a wronged child, unable to find comfort and forced to endure. Tansy's nose suddenly stung with the urge to cry. She didn't move, just let him hold her. A moment later, his phone rang. Fletcher showed no intention of answering it. "Fletcher, don't worry about it." His muffled voice came from beside her ear. "Tansy, I miss you so much." Tansy hardened her heart and finally pushed him away. "Fletcher, don't say things like that anymore. I'm married now. You should have some sense of propriety. I'm leaving. We won't see each other again. If you don't want a repeat of tonight, be more careful. Don't be so easily fooled." Before she walked out, Fletcher called out to her again. "Tansy, tell me, did you really come here tonight to set me up with them? Tell me the truth." "Fletcher, I've already told you the truth. You're just choosing not to believe it. If there's a next time, I won't miss. You'd better watch yourself." She threw out the line and left without a second thought, the door blocking Fletcher's view. Tansy had just reached the hotel entrance when someone grabbed her hand. She paused, startled, and turned around. "Fletcher, you, don't go through the main entrance. Follow me." Fletcher pulled her into the back kitchen and then out through a small service door. In a nearby corner, his black Bentley was parked. He pushed her into the back seat and got in after her. "Fletcher, there are people waiting at the main entrance." He turned to look at her and smiled faintly. "I won't do anything to you. But if you don't listen to me, you'll be on the gossip columns with me tomorrow morning. I'd be honored, I just don't know if you'd be willing." "Fletcher." Tansy was speechless and could only turn to look out the window, avoiding his gaze. Fletcher gently turned her face back to him. "Tansy, today has been the happiest day for me in the last 6 months because you're by my side. I should thank those people. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't have had the chance to be with you like this." Tansy froze for a moment. "Fletcher, are you crazy? They want you dead. Even my appearance tonight was to frame you. So what? My life, Fletcher Hughes's life, isn't that precious. Whatever Tansy wants, I'll do everything in my power to get it for her. If she wants my life, I'll hand it over. Whatever Tansy wants, Fletcher will do everything in his power to get it for her." How familiar those words were. In her previous life, before their wedding, Fletcher had made that exact promise to the media. Tansy pushed his hand away and turned to look out the window. But in the angle he couldn't see, she shed silent tears. Half an hour later, the car stopped at the entrance of her residential community. Tansy pushed open the car door and turned her head. "Fletcher, thank you for tonight, but from now on, we..." Fletcher reached out a long arm and pulled her straight into his embrace. Her forehead bumped against his hard chest. Before she could resist, he cupped the back of her head and kissed her hard. He kissed her deeply, urgently. At first, Tansy struggled, but then he caught both of her wrists. Fletcher finally released her, only to pull her into a tight, desperate hug. He kissed her hair, his lips full of longing. "Tansy, I regret it. I shouldn't have been a gentleman. If being a gentleman means losing you, I'd rather be a scoundrel. I can give up everything, my reputation, my principles. I, Fletcher Hughes, can give it all up as long as you come back to me. Fletcher." Tansy looked up at him, her eyelashes already wet with tears. She was afraid he would repeat the mistakes of the past. "I don't love you. The person I love now is Miles Montague. He's the one I willingly married. Forcing me to stay by your side will only bring me pain. If you still have any regard for our past, please let me go, okay?" Her tone was almost a plea. Fletcher heard her say that she no longer loved him, that she loved another man now. A buzzing sound filled his ears, and something inside him seemed to collapse with a deafening crash. He looked at her, his eyes red-rimmed. His gaze was filled with questions, disbelief, and deep confusion. Tansy wiped the tears from her lashes and turned her head, refusing to look at him. "Fletcher, did you hear me? I don't love you anymore, so please stop pestering me." She turned to open the car door. This time, Fletcher didn't stop her. Tansy didn't expect to see her parents in her marital home. The two were sitting on the sofa. Her father's face was a mask of undisguised fury, while her mother looked anxious, wanting to intervene but not daring to. Miles Montague sat across from them, his legs crossed, a vague, unreadable smile on his lips. Tansy spoke calmly. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here? You didn't even give me a heads up." Her father roared at her. "You have the nerve to speak? You were out all night. Where did you go?" Tansy pressed her lips together. "To see a friend." Her father threw a stack of photos in front of her. "What kind of friend do you need to see at a hotel in the middle of the night? You're a young woman, have you no shame?" Luckily, Miles found out in time and notified us. Otherwise, you would have completely disgraced both the Thorne and Montague families. Tansy bent down and picked up one of the photos. It was taken at the entrance of the Peninsula Hotel, showing her back as she hurried away. Only then did she understand what Fletcher had meant. So, someone had been lying in wait at the hotel. If Fletcher hadn't pulled her away in time, the photo wouldn't have just shown her alone, and it might not have ended up in her father's hands. Tansy shifted her gaze to Miles Montague. "Who's so fond of stirring up trouble, having me followed and then playing the victim?" Miles shrugged, his face a picture of arrogance. Eleonora tried to reason with her daughter. "Tansy, what exactly happened? Explain it clearly to your father. I know you're not that kind of person," Alaric snorted. "You're still trying to cover for her what's there to explain. She obviously went to see that Hughes boy. The people we sent came up empty. By the time the woman got there, Fletcher was long gone. If it wasn't your good daughter who went to tip him off, then what was it?" Tansy looked at her father, the color draining from her face. "Dad, it was really you. Why would you do that to Fletcher? He's always respected you. Besides, I'm not with him anymore. Why can't you just leave him alone? I leave him alone? Who's going to leave us alone? Her father's face was full of contempt. You tell him to shut down that pathetic company of his, and I promise I won't bother him again. A poor boy who dreams of soaring to the sky. Does he think these old, established families are just sitting around doing nothing? Tansy's lips tightened. Dad, you're being completely unreasonable. Fletcher built his company to its current scale through his own ability. Even if you crush him, other rising stars will just take his place. She couldn't finish her sentence. A sharp slap echoed in the quiet night. Her mother, Eleonora, threw herself at her husband, pounding on him with her fists. Alaric Thorne, are you insane? What right do you have to hit my daughter? I'll fight you. I'll risk my own life today to fight you, you old bastard. Her father shoved her away violently. Eleonora stumbled, and Tansy rushed to support her. Mom, don't get involved in my affairs. I'll handle it myself. You'll get dragged into this. Eleonora caressed her daughter's swollen cheek, her heart aching. Tansy, I know you're suffering. This marriage was never what you wanted. It's my fault I didn't protect you. I'm useless. I couldn't let you marry the man you love. Tansy hadn't wanted to cry, but seeing her mother's heartbroken expression, she couldn't stop her own tears from falling. In the end, she had implicated her mother after all. Witnessing this chaotic scene, Miles Montague acted as if he had nothing to do with it. He stood up and brushed the wrinkles from his suit. Father-in-law, I can't interfere in the Thorne family's domestic affairs, but I hope you'll give me an explanation for Tansy's late-night rendezvous with an illicit lover. Feeling guilty, Alaric was about to apologize. But Tansy spoke before he could. Miles Montague, you had me followed and secretly photographed. I haven't even settled that score with you. You'd better apologize to me immediately. Otherwise, I guarantee that tomorrow's headlines will be about you, second young Master Montague, raping an underage girl. Miles Montague, you can wait to rot in jail. The smile on Miles's face froze, and he stood motionless for a long moment. Alaric, furious, raised his hand again. You shut up, you ungrateful daughter, you still have the nerve. Dad, the one who should shut up is you. Tansy turned her head, her gaze icy as she looked at him. It was not the look of a daughter at her father, but at a stranger. If any of you dare to touch Fletcher Hughes again, I will make you pay, even if it costs me everything. If Fletcher Hughes suffers, I'll make sure every single one of you suffers with him, especially you, Miles Montague. Do you want to be a playboy, or do you want to spend a few years in prison? Think it over carefully. Whatever you decide, I, Tansy Thorne, will play along to the very end. The way Miles looked at her was as if he were looking at a madwoman. Tansy, I think you've completely lost your mind. You're abandoning your own family for some illicit lover. You're making an enemy of the whole world for Fletcher Hughes. Tansy suddenly let out a low laugh. Miles Montague, you're absolutely right. So now you know what happens when you mess with Fletcher Hughes? She had indeed gone mad. All she had fought for was for Fletcher to live a good life. If, in this life, she married someone else but still couldn't protect him, what was the point of it all? She had already died once. She wasn't afraid of death, so what else was there to fear? After that night, no one dared to trouble Fletcher Hughes again. Tang Nyan Tech's development skyrocketed, and Fletcher's wealth and prestige grew by the day. In contrast, the Thorne family and other established powerhouses began to wane, showing signs of decline. In her previous life, at the upcoming 30th anniversary celebration of the Thorne Group, her father would announce his retirement as chairman. He would be succeeded by his eldest son-in-law, Preston Vance. From that point on, Preston would hold the real power in the Thorne Group. He was indeed capable, breathing new life into the crumbling business empire. The Thorne Group's performance gradually recovered, and Preston, due to his outstanding performance, further gained the trust of the Thorne family. Alaric Thorne delegated more authority. In just over a year, Preston had consolidated all power within the Thorne family, becoming the ultimate decision-maker both in the company and at home. Preston secretly emptied the Thorne family's assets. By the time Alaric noticed, the Thorne Group was nothing but an empty shell. Furious, Alaric took Preston to court. But by then, the assets had already been transferred to anonymous overseas accounts, and recovering them was nearly impossible. Preston had the top legal team in the industry and successfully evaded a prison sentence. He even developed a vicious plan to eradicate the Thorne family. On the night of Alaric's 70th birthday, a fire broke out in the old Thorne mansion. Fletcher, who was away on a business trip, could have escaped the disaster, but he rushed back at the last minute to save Tansy from the inferno, only to be consumed by the flames himself. In her bedroom, Tansy stared blankly at the medical report in her hand. She had obtained the report secretly, using a sample Sylvia had left at the hospital and having a trusted doctor perform the tests. She had previously hired someone to investigate Preston, but the search had turned up nothing. Preston's resume was impeccable, and his personal life was clean, with no blemishes to be found. This report was the only clue she had so far. It showed that Sylvia was in perfect health, with no signs of infertility whatsoever. So why did she have this misconception about herself? Tansy couldn't help but suspect that Preston had deliberately orchestrated it to make Sylvia even more devoted to him. Suddenly, a knock came at the door. "Tansy, are you asleep?" Hearing her mother's voice, Tansy quickly put the report back in the folder and stuffed the folder into a drawer. "No, Mom, please come in." Her mother, Eleonora, walked in with a glass of milk. Tansy quickly got up to greet her. "Mom, the maids can do these things. You don't have to do it yourself." Eleonora sat down on the edge of her daughter's bed, looking at her with a pained expression. "Tansy, you haven't left the house in a long time. I'm really worried about you." After her fallout with Miles that night, he had simply moved out to live with his lover. Tansy had also moved back to the old Thorne mansion. Eleonora sighed. "Tansy, outsiders might not see it, but as your mother, I see it as clear as day. You've never truly let go of Fletcher. If you really can't bear to part with him, I support you getting a divorce. Mom, it's impossible for me to be with Fletcher anymore." Tansy's answer was unhesitating. Eleonora couldn't understand. "Why? I wanted to ask you that when you agreed to the marriage with the Montague family. Actually, you weren't without options. If you had insisted on marrying Fletcher, your father couldn't have done anything to you." Tansy knew this well. In her previous life, that's exactly what she had chosen. And because of that, in this life, she could never make that choice again. "Let's not talk about him," Tansy said, looking at her mother. "Mom, I have something else I want to talk to you about." "Go on." "I had a dream last night, a rather ominous one." "What kind of dream?" "I dreamed that brother-in-law took over the Thorne group. He hid it from us, transferred all the assets overseas, and on Dad's 70th birthday, he set a fire, trying to kill us all." "Hush, hush, what nonsense are you spouting, child?" Eleonora couldn't listen anymore. "Your brother-in-law is such a good person. How could you say that about him? How sad would your sister be if she heard?" Tansy could only swallow the rest of her words. Yes, in the eyes of the world, Preston Vance was an impeccable husband and son-in-law. Not just her mother, but even she herself in her previous life, upon hearing such things, would have had a first reaction of disbelief. Seeing her lost in thought, Eleonora's tone softened. "Tansy, you've been in a bad mood lately. It's normal to have nightmares. Besides, your father has been thinking about retiring for a while now, and the rumors about your brother-in-law taking over have been around for some time. You've been hearing things during the day, so you dream about them at night. Perhaps." Tansy was distracted. Her mother was the person who trusted her the most. If even she didn't believe her, no one else would. Tansy knew she had to find concrete evidence, not just make baseless claims. But she didn't have much time. The Thorne Group's 30th anniversary celebration was just a week away. Tansy lay awake until dawn. When she woke up the next day, she was startled by a news headline on her phone. "Billionaire son-in-law Preston Vance's affair confirmed. Seen embracing and kissing a young model in a car, entering a luxury mansion in Clearwater Bay together." Preston had actually cheated. Tansy clicked on the news article. In the most prominent position of the report were photos taken by paparazzi. The surrounding light was dim, but the faces of the man and woman in the photos were incredibly clear. Especially Preston's. It was unmistakably him. Tansy was so happy she didn't know how to react. This news might be a disaster for others, but for her, it was undoubtedly a godsend. She had been struggling to find a way to expose Preston. Now, with this cheating scandal, the Thorne family's trust in him would surely be shaken. However, Tansy still couldn't figure out how all this had happened. In her previous life, there had been no affair. The information her private investigator had given her not long ago also showed that Preston's personal life was impeccably clean. Preston came to the Thorne house that very day to apologize to her parents and clarify the matter. According to him, someone had deliberately framed him, drugged him, and put the young model in his car. But with the news report out there, whatever he said lacked credibility. The impact of this incident was enormous. A week later, at the Thorne Group's 30th anniversary celebration, Alaric Thorne did not announce Preston as his successor. Tansy was in a particularly good mood that night. Even the loathsome Miles Montague seemed more tolerable. She smiled brightly, linking her arm with his, playing the part of a loving couple in public. Miles seemed even more invested in the act than she was. "Tansy, you look really beautiful tonight." "Do I?" "Yes. The moment you walked out just now, my eyes were glued to you." Tansy turned and smiled at him. "Then you should go get your facial nerves checked. Uncontrollable facial expressions are a precursor to facial paralysis." As they were talking, a commotion arose at the hotel entrance. Fletcher's figure entered her line of sight without any warning. He had actually come. He hadn't been invited to tonight's reception. The moment Fletcher appeared, nearly half the people in the room immediately swarmed around him, striking up conversations and exchanging pleasantries. It was human nature to flatter the successful. He wore a dark blue suit tonight, which accentuated his broad shoulders, narrow waist, and long legs. But what stood out the most was his face, which was devastatingly handsome. Tossed into any crowd, he was an existence that was impossible to ignore. Tansy averted her gaze, trying to find an excuse to leave. But Fletcher, surrounded by the crowd, was already walking in her direction. Miles suddenly squeezed her hand. Tansy felt a wave of nausea and instinctively tried to pull away. At that moment, Fletcher stopped in front of them. He glanced at Tansy. The way her fingers were intertwined with Miles's really did make them look like a loving couple. A flicker of something passed through Fletcher's eyes. Miles said provocatively, "Fletcher Hughes, you weren't invited to tonight's reception. Isn't it rude to show up unannounced?" Fletcher's tone was calm. "The 30th anniversary of the Thorne Group is such a grand event. I just came to join in the excitement. Why is Mr. Montague trying to chase people away?" He didn't look at Miles as he said this. Miles followed his gaze and saw Tansy beside him. His grip on her hand tightened. "Fletcher Hughes, where are your eyes wandering? What exactly brought you to this party? What do you think?" With that light-hearted question, Fletcher deftly kicked the ball back into Miles's court. Miles could only glare at him. Someone came over to talk to Tansy. She excused herself from Miles. "Hubby, I'll be right back." "Hubby." The calm in Fletcher's eyes was finally broken by that word. Tansy left without another word. Miles looked away from her and said, deliberately showing off, "Fletcher, no matter why you came, you're destined to leave empty-handed tonight." "Is that so?" Fletcher's gaze followed Tansy's retreating figure for a long time before he looked away. Tansy wasn't much of a drinker, but tonight she seemed to be accepting every drink offered to her. She was soon half drunk. A waiter helped her upstairs to rest, and she fell asleep as soon as she hit the bed. She didn't know how much time had passed before she woke up from a nightmare with a start. Fletcher, she had dreamed of the explosion from her past life again. The feeling of Fletcher holding her in his arms was still vivid, as if it had happened only yesterday. Her chest heaved, and it took a long while for her breathing to calm down. She looked up and saw a figure standing by the floor-to-ceiling window. Fletcher turned around. The light reflected in his eyes, his face half shrouded in shadow, making his expression unreadable. "You were having a dream. You called my name. Didn't you say I wasn't in your heart anymore? Then why do you still call my name in your dreams? Didn't you say the one you love now is Miles Montague? Why didn't you call his name?" With one hand in his pocket, Fletcher slowly walked towards her. Tansy felt that something about him had changed. She had felt it the first time she saw him at the reception, a clear and strong feeling. It was still the same face, and the love in his eyes when he looked at her was still just as intense. But it was as if Fletcher had matured several times over in one night. He seemed to have acquired a new kind of authority, seasoned and sharp, that felt both familiar and strange to her. "Fletcher, what are you doing in my room?" She instinctively gripped the bedsheet beneath her, her breathing shallow and cautious. Fletcher sat down on the edge of her bed. He leaned forward, his body casting a dark shadow over her. Tansy, don't you think you owe me an explanation for why you married someone else? Explain what? What's our relationship? Why should I explain anything to you? You should leave. If you don't, I'm calling security. Fletcher suddenly reached out. Tansy fell into his arms. His hard, warm chest pressed against her, his arms wrapped around her waist. His lips kissed her hair, her ear, her neck, inch by inch. This tender, lingering embrace had been played out between them countless times before. Tansy, do you remember what you called Miles Montague earlier? What? That name is only for us. Hubby, Fletcher was talking about that name. Tansy suddenly understood. Fletcher, what's gotten into you? Tansy felt like she couldn't understand him anymore. They had been apart for almost a year, and he had previously accepted the fact that she had married someone else. Fletcher raised his hand, tracing her eyebrows and eyes inch by inch. Tansy, I've missed you so much. Come back to me, please. Tansy avoided his hand. I told you, Fletcher, I can't be with you because I don't love you anymore. Fletcher grabbed her wrist, the thin silver chain reflecting the light. You don't love me anymore. Then why are you still wearing the first gift I ever gave you? Tansy, stop being so willful. Fletcher. A rapid knocking sounded at the door. Tansy turned to look. Miss Thorne, are you awake? What is it? Mr. Montague has had a relapse of his old illness and fainted. If you're awake... Tansy had already thrown off the covers, got out of bed, and went to open the door. What's wrong with Miles? I'm not sure. They said it's an old ailment. Your mother asked me to come and get you. Take me to him, quickly. Before leaving, Tansy glanced back into the dark room. The doorway was soon empty. Fletcher expressionlessly looked away and stood up to follow. The Montague family had a hereditary heart defect. Miles had drunk too much tonight, which had triggered a relapse. By the time Tansy got downstairs, he was already being helped into a car. Tansy, Miles, how are you? Miles's gaze fell on Fletcher, who had followed Tansy. Wife, I don't feel well. Come to the hospital with me. Tansy frowned. The Montague elders were all there, and many familiar relatives and friends were standing around. With so many people watching, she had no choice but to get into the car. She saw Fletcher standing at the entrance, backlit by the light. His figure was lean and tall, the streetlight stretching his shadow long, adding a touch of loneliness. Tansy's hand froze, and she closed the car door. The car drove off smoothly, and the crowd at the entrance dispersed. Fletcher remained standing there. A moment later, he took out his phone and called his driver. Tansy sat on a bench outside the consultation room, her head bowed, lost in thought. Suddenly, a suit jacket was draped over her shoulders. She looked up, startled, and saw Fletcher. The light shone down on him from above, enveloping him in a halo that gave him a gentle air. Tansy pulled off the suit jacket and shoved it back into his arms. Fletcher, can't you have some sense of propriety? My husband is in there having an examination. Do you think this is appropriate? Tansy, in my eyes, nothing is more important than you. I only care about you. Fletcher's expression and tone were still so gentle. Tansy didn't know what to say and could only look away from him. The door to the consultation room opened, and a nurse pushed out a hospital bed. When Miles saw Tansy, he immediately tried to sit up. Wife! A chill entered Fletcher's eyes. Tansy asked the doctor, how is he? Is it serious? The doctor took off his mask. Mr. Montague drank a lot tonight. The alcohol is a major stimulant for his condition. His condition is stable for now. I recommend he be hospitalized for observation for one night. If he's fine tomorrow morning, he can be discharged. It didn't sound too serious. Tansy breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at Miles on the hospital bed, who had a pitiful expression on his face. She wondered what act he was putting on now. Tansy looked away. I'll handle the admission for you. As she passed by Miles's bed, he grabbed her hand. Wife, thank you for your hard work. You've been running around all night for me. Fletcher's face instantly darkened. Tansy shook off his hand without a word. She walked away without looking back. Miles taunted Fletcher. Fletcher Hughes, my wife is handling my hospital admission. What's an outsider like you doing here? You're a grown man. Do you enjoy being a clingy pest? Fletcher stopped and turned to look at him. The look sent a chill down Miles's spine. Miles Montague, you should be thankful you're lucky enough to still be alive and kicking. Miles was speechless for a long moment. Fletcher didn't spare him another glance and strode towards the elevator. Just before the elevator doors closed, a hand reached out to stop them. Tansy looked up. Fletcher walked in silently and stood beside her. As the elevator descended, neither of them spoke, and the small space was filled with silence. Fletcher's gaze fell on her face. The curve of her profile was as soft as ever, but her brow was furrowed with a worry that couldn't be erased. He looked thoughtful. The elevator stopped, the doors opened, and Tansy walked out quickly. Fletcher, with his long legs, quickly caught up to her. In the dead of night, the only sound in the hospital corridor was their footsteps. Fletcher stared at her back and suddenly called out in a daze, "Wife!" Tansy's body visibly stiffened. She stood there for a full half-minute, motionless and silent. Just as Fletcher was about to catch up, she started walking again. He hurried after her. She suddenly stopped in front of him, and they almost collided. "Don't call me that anymore." Fletcher heard her voice, faint and seemingly devoid of any emotion. "Fletcher, I'm married now. It's not appropriate." After saying that, she walked away without looking back. Fletcher stood there, a bitter smile on his lips. When Tansy returned to the hospital room, Miles was dozing off, propped up against the headboard. When he saw Fletcher behind Tansy, his expression immediately changed. "Wife, get me a glass of water. I'm thirsty." Tansy walked to the water dispenser without a word. "Fletcher, you're disturbing my rest. Get the hell out. Oh, and close the door on your way out. Don't interrupt my private time with my wife." Tansy's hand trembled as she poured the hot water. A few drops spilled onto the back of her hand, stinging with a burning pain. She sucked in a sharp breath and reached for a tissue. Fletcher strode over to her and took her hand. "Are you all right? Did you get burned?" Tansy shook off his hand and walked towards the hospital bed. "Fletcher, you should go. Don't disturb the patient's rest." "Did you hear that? My wife told you to get lost. Fletcher, what the hell are you sticking around for?" Fletcher clenched his jaw and turned to leave. The door closed. Tansy slammed the water glass down on the bedside table. Hot water splashed out, spilling onto Miles and making him cry out in pain. "What the hell? My clothes are all wet, Tansy." Tansy looked at him with a cold expression. "Miles Montague, I've played along with your act long enough. My benevolence has its limits. I'm going home to sleep now. From now on, a nurse will be responsible for you in the hospital. It has nothing to do with me. And let me remind you, don't you dare humiliate Fletcher Hughes again. Otherwise, don't blame me for turning nasty." After saying that, she walked out. She had only taken a few steps down the corridor when she saw Fletcher not far away. He hadn't left yet. Tansy stopped in her tracks, but Fletcher didn't look at her. He was just leaning against the wall, smoking. His brow was furrowed, his chin tilted up, giving him a look that was both casual and untamed from a distance. He stubbed out his cigarette and slowly walked over. He stopped in front of her, not speaking, just looking at her. Tansy felt a little uncomfortable under his gaze. At that moment, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the corridor. They both looked over and saw Sylvia. The man behind her was none other than Preston Vance. "Tansy, how's our brother-in-law? Mom and Dad were worried, so they sent me to check on him." "He's fine. The doctor said he can be discharged tomorrow. It's getting late, you two should go home and rest." Tansy's gaze fell on Preston. She hadn't seen him in a while, and he had lost a lot of weight, his face etched with frustration. It was a stark contrast to the glorious takeover of the Thorne Group in her previous life. Preston's fate seemed to have been completely changed by the cheating scandal. So what about the catastrophe that had befallen the Thorne family? Would it still happen? Tansy was lost in thought. Suddenly, Preston rushed forward and grabbed Fletcher by the collar. "Fletcher Hughes, you still dare to show your face? The person who drugged me and put that model in my car was you. I've found out everything. What are your intentions? You can't have Tansy, so you want to see our Thorne family in perpetual turmoil, is that it?" Caught off guard, Fletcher was pinned against the wall. Preston swung his fist and slammed it into his face. Thud. Tansy rushed over to pull Preston away. "Preston, why are you blaming Fletcher for your own disgusting actions?" "Let go." Preston shoved Tansy aside. Tansy stumbled, but luckily, Sylvia, who was behind her, caught her. Another thud. Preston clutched his face in pain. Fletcher grabbed Preston by the neck and slammed him against the wall. "Preston Vance, you two-faced scoundrel, I'm going to fucking kill you today." Sylvia watched the chaotic scene in front of her, on the verge of tears. "Are you crazy? Stop fighting, stop it now." Preston desperately beat at Fletcher's hand. "It was him. He deliberately framed me. I was really framed, Fletcher Hughes. Why did you do this to me?" Seeing his eyes roll back and his face turn purple, Tansy feared a life would be lost. She threw herself at Fletcher to stop him. Fletcher, let go. Fletcher seemed not to hear her, as if he was intent on killing Preston. The scene terrified Tansy, and she burst into tears. Fletcher, let go or I'll never see you again for the rest of my life, and I mean it. A flicker of confusion crossed Fletcher's eyes. He released his grip, walked over to Tansy, and pulled her into his arms. Tansy, don't cry. No matter what happens, I'll be with you. Don't be afraid. Tansy desperately beat at his chest. Fletcher, are you insane? You're willing to risk your own life for a scumbag like him. If you had really killed him, you would have gone to jail. Fletcher said nothing more, just kissed her. He kissed her thin, slightly swollen eyelids, the red corners of her eyes. The gentler his kisses, the more his heart ached for her. He shouldn't have made her worry. Preston collapsed to the floor, clutching his neck and coughing violently. Sylvia walked over to him. Are you okay? Preston looked up, trembling, and pointed at Fletcher. Sylvia, believe me, it was really Fletcher who framed me. I have proof that he deliberately set this up. He wants to harm our Thorne family. Sylvia was clearly hesitant. Fletcher, is what he's saying true? Tansy spoke before Fletcher could. Sister, Preston had a relationship with that model. Isn't that a fact? What do you mean, framed? A man can't control himself, has a relationship with another woman, and then blames it on drugs afterwards. Even without drugs, being drunk, being in a bad mood. Can't any of those be an excuse for cheating? But cheating is cheating. No excuse can cover up the fact of betrayal. Sylvia fell into thought again. Preston rushed over and took her hand, his voice full of emotion. Sylvia, I admit this was my fault. But it wasn't voluntary, and I wasn't the one who initiated it. How am I the same as those cheating scumbags? Sylvia, I've only ever loved you. We've been married for 5 years. You know better than anyone how I've treated you and the Thorne family. I accept that Tansy doesn't understand me, but Sylvia, you're my wife. How can you be so cruel to me? Sylvia grew even more hesitant. Tansy's brow furrowed. Preston was too good at arguing, and Sylvia had feelings for him. 5 years of marriage wasn't something that could be dismissed with just a few words. Is that so, Preston? If you love my sister so much, why did you lie to her and make her think she couldn't have children? Tansy's voice was firm and clear. Sylvia was completely stunned. Tansy, what are you saying? Tansy walked towards them step by step. Sister, you're perfectly healthy. I took the sample you left at the hospital and had a trusted doctor check it. I have the report right here. I didn't tell you before because I didn't know how to bring it up. But now, I have to say it. I can't watch you be deceived by this bastard any longer. Preston not only bribed your doctor, but he also bribed the maids to switch your vitamins with birth control pills. Sister, Preston never wanted you to get pregnant. If he truly loved you, why would he do something like this? By the time Tansy left the hospital, it was almost dawn. The early morning air was chilly, and she wrapped her arms around herself. Fletcher took off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her. Don't catch a cold. Tansy instinctively tried to push him away, but he was stubborn, holding her shoulders and not letting go. In the end, she gave up. Your face! Her gaze swept over the corner of his lip, where a faint trace of blood remained. It was from Preston's punch. Does it hurt? Fletcher actually smiled. No. The driver pulled the car up in front of Tansy. As she was getting in, she paused. Want a ride? Fletcher was taken aback for a moment, then a brilliant smile spread across his face. The car drove on. They sat in the back, a half-person's distance apart, the atmosphere distant and polite. Tansy watched the streetlights flash by like a flowing river, her head feeling dizzy. Why did you frame Preston? You said it yourself, it wasn't exactly framing. Even if he was drugged, that's not a sufficient reason for cheating. I mean, why did you frame him and not someone else? Preston doesn't seem to have offended you. At the hospital, he had called Preston a two-faced scoundrel. Where did that come from? What about you? How did you know he bribed the doctor and the maids? I had someone investigate him. Did you have someone investigate him too? Why did you investigate him? Perhaps it's because we have a telepathic connection, so we both thought of the same thing. Tansy turned to look at him. Behind him was a colorful cityscape, but only his face was clear and handsome, his features the same as they had always been. She slowly drew back her gaze. After a while, Fletcher saw that she hadn't moved. He turned his head and saw that she had fallen asleep against the seat, her brow slightly furrowed, as if she were burdened by an unsolvable sorrow. He sighed softly and pulled her into his arms. He let her rest her head on his chest so she could sleep more comfortably on the way. When Tansy woke up, she was in bed. Outside the window, the sky was bright. Faint sounds came from the kitchen, and she assumed it was the maids making breakfast. She opened the door and walked out, only to freeze. Fletcher, wearing a white shirt and gray trousers, was walking out of the kitchen with a plate of fried eggs. He smiled when he saw her. "You're awake, breakfast is ready." His tall figure stood by the dining table. The clear morning sunlight fell on his brow, and the smile in his eyes was deep and gentle. Tansy's eyes suddenly stung. In her previous life, after they were married, Fletcher would make her breakfast on weekends whenever he was home. She was a picky eater, only eating sunny side-up eggs. If they were even a little overcooked, she couldn't swallow them. Fletcher was willing to indulge her, practicing over and over again in his spare time, until he could make the perfect fried egg in her eyes. After that, she could only eat the fried eggs he made. "Fletcher, what are you doing here?" "I brought you back. You fell asleep, and I was worried about you being alone." He walked over to her and gently tapped her nose. "I've been waiting for you all morning." "You're finally awake." Tansy immediately took a step back. Her eyes were red, and she fought back tears. "Fletcher, you're too bold. Do you know this is my and Miles's marital home? If the paparazzi had taken a picture last night, you would have been on the front page. Didn't the incident at the Peninsula Hotel teach you anything? Are you worried about me? Why would I be worried about you? I'm worried about my own reputation. I'm a woman, and I'm married. Do you want to see me be scorned by the whole world?" Perhaps her words were too harsh. The smile on Fletcher's face gradually faded. His Adam's apple bobbed, but his tone was still gentle. "I'll leave after you finish breakfast. It won't take long." Tansy looked at him for a few seconds. Then she strode to the dining table, picked up the plate of fried eggs, and dumped them into the trash can. In her peripheral vision, she saw Fletcher as if he were nailed to the spot. He stood there, motionless, looking in her direction. "Can you leave now?" "Fine, I'll go." Fletcher's steps were slow, his body slightly stooped. Tansy watched his figure disappear through the doorway. Her tears fell silently. She quickly wiped them away and walked to the trash can. The eggs were ruined, but she could still see that they were perfectly sunny side up. One side was fully cooked, the other was medium rare, just the way she liked it. She knew that Fletcher must have been very careful when he made them, but his sincerity was destined to be betrayed. A month later, Sylvia divorced Preston. The night she got the divorce certificate, Tansy received a call from her mother, asking her to go to a bar and persuade Sylvia to come home. People have a self-protective instinct when facing pain. Some people do things they would never normally do. For Sylvia, it was letting loose. When Tansy arrived, Sylvia was on the dance floor, grinding against several muscular men. Tansy pushed through the crowd and pulled her out. They sat in a booth in the corner. Sylvia downed glass after glass of whiskey. Tansy couldn't stop her. "That's enough. Sister, are you crazy? You'll drink yourself to death like this." "I can't do this, I can't do that. Can I even have a drink?" "Tansy, do you know how painful it is to be the eldest daughter of the Thorne family? Be prudent, be proper. All these years, only Preston cared about me, understood me. I thought he loved me. I considered him my closest family, but even he lied to me." Sylvia broke down in tears. Tansy watched, her heart aching, but she didn't know how to comfort her. Sylvia loved Preston. She had fallen in love with a monster. Tansy had never experienced that kind of pain, so she had no right to say she understood. Sylvia looked at her with tear-filled eyes. "Tansy, aren't you in pain? You love Fletcher, I can see it, and he loves you too. The way he looks at you is different from how he looks at anyone else." Tansy didn't answer. She didn't dare to look into Sylvia's eyes for fear of seeing her own heart, which had nowhere to hide. The whole world knew how much Fletcher loved her. She tilted her head back and drained the whiskey from her glass. The sharp liquor flowed down her throat, and the pain seemed to find an outlet. "He and I are not destined to be together in this life. Why? You still have a chance." "Tansy, I don't have a choice anymore. But you do. Why do you have to carry this regret to the very end?" Sylvia continued to ramble in her ear, sometimes about herself, sometimes about her, crying and laughing. Tansy just kept drinking, glass after glass, and was soon drunk. The men and women dancing closely on the dance floor all turned into monsters in her eyes. A face kept appearing in her mind. It was Fletcher. The him from her past life, the him from this life. His every smile, every frown was deeply etched in her memory. The driver approached her. "Second miss, shall I take you and the eldest miss home?" Tansy glanced at Sylvia, who was slumped over the table, and waved the driver away. "You take her home, I'm not going back tonight." She staggered out of the bar. The cold wind blew and she shivered. She took out her phone and scrolled through the numbers. When she found Fletcher's name, she suddenly smiled. "Fletcher," she dialed the number. A buzzing vibration came from behind her. Tansy froze for a moment and turned around. Fletcher's face came into view, clear and distinct. He stood on a street corner, the lights twinkling behind him. The bustling street scene behind him was now a dim, lackluster backdrop. Tansy could only see him. "Fletcher, what are you doing here?" "Sylvia called me." "When did you get here?" "When you had your first drink." "I was in the booth next to you." "Then why didn't you come out?" "I was afraid you didn't want to see me, afraid of making things difficult for you." "Fletcher." Tansy's legs gave way, and she fell into his arms. Her face was pressed against his warm chest, the familiar scent of him filling her nose. She suddenly smiled. Then she started to cry. She was drunk, wasn't she? Could she be willful just this once? She promised it would be only this once. Tansy felt like she was in a long, beautiful dream. In the dream, she was well aware that she was drunk, and because of that, she was particularly bold and passionate. In the middle of it, Fletcher stopped and took a delicate box from his trouser pocket. He opened it, revealing a blue diamond. "This one isn't as big as the one and only heart, but its clarity is higher. I searched for a long time to find the closest one. Although it's a substitute, I hope you like it." "I like it. I like anything you give me." Tansy suddenly started to cry. "Fletcher, I don't want anything. I just want you to live a good life." Fletcher gently kissed her eyes, her slightly red nose. In the end, Tansy remembered nothing. Only Fletcher's eyes, so deep and beautiful. When he looked at her, covered in sweat, she felt like she was being drawn into a bottomless whirlpool, intoxicated and unwilling to wake up. She wrapped her arms tightly around his bare, muscular back, pressing her face against his chest. The emptiness in her heart was finally filled. She was filled with joy. How lucky she was to have met this man named Fletcher Hughes. From then on, there were no more harsh winters. Her life would be forever sunny, forever warm as spring. Tansy was awakened by the sound of water running in the bathroom. The water stopped, and the man walked out, wrapped in a towel. She kept her eyes closed, so he didn't realize she was awake. He gently placed a kiss on her forehead and quietly got dressed. Just as he was about to leave, Tansy suddenly opened her eyes and sat up in bed. "Fletcher, are you leaving?" Fletcher's body stiffened, but he didn't turn around. "You're awake. I thought you wouldn't want to see me. Last night was an accident. You were drunk, I know." Tansy's eyes suddenly reddened, and her voice became thick with emotion. "No, last night wasn't an accident. I initiated it, and I was willing." Before Fletcher could turn around, she had thrown off the covers, gotten out of bed, and hugged him tightly from behind. "Fletcher, don't turn around, just listen to what I have to say." "Okay. I know I've done a lot of things to hurt you, but that was never my intention. I had to do them. I know. You don't know, I just want you to live a good life. This is my only wish in this life, in all my lives. Will you promise me that? No matter what, always put your own safety first. Fletcher, I need you to promise me, to guarantee it." Fletcher's body was stiff for a long time. "Okay, I promise you." Tansy finally smiled, a tearful smile. "Good. Fletcher, you must always remember your promise. Otherwise, I'll be angry." "Okay, I'll remember." Fletcher turned around in her arms and looked at her gently, as if he wanted to memorize her face forever. He raised his hand and gently wiped away the tear from the corner of her eye. "Tansy, don't cry. You're not as pretty when you cry." Tears still clung to Tansy's lashes, but the corners of her lips curled up. "Fletcher, are you saying I'm ugly?" Fletcher smiled too, his whole face softening. He lowered his gaze slightly, then suddenly let go of her and turned around. "All right, it's getting late, I have to go." He started to walk away, but Tansy called out to him again. "Fletcher." We won't see each other again. Today is the last time." "Okay." This time, Fletcher's agreement was unusually crisp. Tansy was stunned for a moment, but Fletcher walked away quickly, his tall figure soon disappearing through the doorway. Tansy stood there for a long time, feeling that something was wrong. Her phone rang at that moment. She walked over and answered it. Her mother's crying came from the other end. "Tansy, where have you been? Sylvia is missing." Tansy froze. "What? My sister is missing?" Sylvia had been picked up by the driver last night. Tansy had watched her get into the car. The driver had worked for the Thorne family for over a decade. He wouldn't be a problem. Her mother's voice trembled with sobs. "Sylvia didn't come home last night. We couldn't find her, so we had to call the police. This morning, the police found the car. The driver was dead inside, and your sister is nowhere to be found." A buzzing sound filled Tansy's head, and her mind went blank for a moment. The driver was murdered, and Sylvia was missing. This was clearly a kidnapping. The perpetrator was capable of murder. Tansy didn't dare to think any further. Her mother was still sobbing on the phone, so she could only comfort her first. "Mom, the driver is dead, but they haven't found my sister yet. That means the perpetrator doesn't want to kill her. Otherwise, she would have met the same fate as the driver." Her mother's crying gradually subsided. "Tansy, are you serious? Mom, you have to trust the police. Whatever they ask us to do, we'll cooperate. The perpetrator is most likely after money. If we're willing to pay, my sister can come back safely." "Okay, Tansy, I'll do as you say." "Mom, don't worry too much. I'm coming back now." Tansy hung up the phone. She had pretended to be calm in front of her mother, but in reality, her forehead was covered in a layer of sweat, and her hands were trembling uncontrollably. She was about to put her phone away when she accidentally opened her messages and saw the one at the top. "Abandoned factory by the river in the western suburbs. Tansy, if you want your sister to live, come and trade yourself for her. You've brought me to this point, and now you should pay the price." The message had been received an hour ago from an anonymous number. Tansy already had a guess as to who it was. And at the same time, she guessed who had killed the driver and kidnapped Sylvia. Preston Vance. What puzzled her was that the message was not in an unread state. That's why there had been no notification. If she hadn't accidentally clicked on it, she might not have discovered it at all. Without much thought, Tansy put her phone away and hurried out. But as she bumped against the bedside table, a small object fell to the floor. She turned back, and her gaze was instantly captivated. The scenes from last night flooded her mind. She had thought it was a dream, but it was real. This one isn't as big as the one and only heart, but its clarity is higher. "I searched for a long time to find the closest one. Although it's a substitute, I hope you like it. The one and only heart." That was the top-tier blue diamond Fletcher had bought at an auction before their wedding in their previous life. But in this life, because she had broken up with Fletcher early on, the auction had never happened. So how could Fletcher know about the one and only heart? Something flashed through Tansy's mind. The color drained from her face, leaving it pale. That day at the hospital, Fletcher had called her wife. That term had never been used between them in this life. That night in the car, she had asked him why he had investigated Preston, why he had framed him with the cheating scandal. He had just brushed it off with a joke. The fried egg that morning. Sunny side up, one side fully cooked, one side medium rare. In their previous life, Fletcher had spent a lot of time practicing to learn how to make it after they got married. In this life, they hadn't even gotten married. How could he have made that egg? And this morning, when she held him and said that she had done those hurtful things out of necessity, he had said he knew. Tansy felt her blood run cold, and a wave of dizziness washed over her. Tears fell. The Fletcher who had been by her side all this time was not the Fletcher of this life. It was the Fletcher of her past life. He knew what Preston had done in the past life, so he orchestrated the cheating scandal to stop him from taking over the Thorne Group. And she had been wondering why that scandal had come at such a timely moment. It turned out that Fletcher had been controlling everything from behind the scenes. So what about this morning? When she had said they would never meet again, he had agreed so readily and left without looking back. Tansy suddenly thought of Preston's message, the one that had already been opened, so it wasn't in an unread state. Fletcher had seen that message. When he left just now, he had gone to the place Preston had specified. The abandoned factory by the river in the western suburbs. Tansy's legs moved of their own accord, and she stumbled out the door. She fell at the entrance, practically crawling to the elevator. The elevator doors opened, and several police officers walked out. "Are you Miss Tansy Thorne? We're here to investigate your sister's disappearance." Have you been contacted by your sister or the kidnappers? Your mother said you were with your sister before she disappeared last night. Tansy's empty, numb gaze slowly cleared. Only then did she realize that the people in front of her were police officers. She grabbed the arm of the leading officer. I know where my sister is, and my husband, Fletcher Hughes, went there too. I'll tell you now. You have to take me there to save him. Go now. That day, she didn't remember how she had gotten into the police car or how they had run more than 20 red lights, speeding to the abandoned factory by the river in the western suburbs. She only remembered that as soon as she got out of the car, she saw Sylvia, covered in blood, lying on the side of the road. The police rushed to save her. Tansy ran desperately towards the factory, running and running, the only sound in her ears the whistling of the wind. The world was silent. Suddenly, a deafening explosion erupted in the distance. The entire factory was engulfed in a sea of flames. Fletcher, Fletcher, I'm coming for you. I'm coming to save you. The police rushed up and surrounded her. They formed a human wall, preventing her from getting any closer to the explosion. She kicked and screamed like a madwoman. Her mind was blank. All she knew was that Fletcher must be in a lot of pain. He had already been through it once in their last life. This time, it should have been her turn. Miss Thorne, don't get any closer, it's too dangerous. Let me go, I want to be with Fletcher. I want to be with him? You'll be in mortal danger. Let me die. Even if I die, I want to die with Fletcher. I'll never leave him alone again. I'm begging you, let me go. Finally, the world went black and Tansy collapsed. Fletcher, I just want you to live a good life. This is my only wish in this life, in all my lives. Will you promise me that? Promise me that no matter what, you'll always put your own safety first. I need you to promise me to guarantee it. Okay, I promise you. Fletcher, you must always remember your promise. Otherwise, I'll be angry. Okay, I'll remember. Fletcher, you liar, you big liar, you've never lied to me before. Why did you lie to me so completely this time? Tansy lay in the hospital for a whole month. The doctors said all her vital signs were normal, but she just wouldn't wake up. It was as if she were willfully lost in a dream, refusing to wake up. A month later, on a sunny afternoon, the person in the hospital bed quietly opened her eyes. The young nurse who came to change her IV drip glanced at her, then ran out, shouting with joy. Within half an hour, everyone had gathered around Tansy's bed. By then, she was already slowly eating porridge with the help of a caregiver. The doctor happily announced that she could be discharged that day. The Thorne family breathed a sigh of relief. Sylvia looked at her calm sister. Tansy, even if it's not for yourself, for the baby in your belly, you can't. Tansy's movement stiffened. Baby? Sylvia nodded. Yes, you're pregnant, just a month along. Sylvia had expected Tansy to be emotional, perhaps sad. But she had never expected her to be like this. Tansy looked confused. Am I married? It took Sylvia a moment to find her voice. No. During the month Tansy was in a coma, the Montague family, seeing no hope of her waking up, had proposed a divorce. Eleonora and Sylvia, knowing that Tansy didn't love Miles, had agreed. Alaric had been reluctant, but the Montague family was determined, so his opinion didn't matter much. In short, the marriage was over. Tansy looked even more confused. I'm not married, so whose baby is it? Now, everyone in the room was stunned. Almost at the same time, they all realized what had happened. Tansy seemed to have lost her memory. She had forgotten everything related to Fletcher Hughes. As everyone hesitated, wondering how to answer, Tansy lowered her head and continued to eat her porridge calmly. It's okay. No matter whose it is, I'll raise him well. I'll love him just the same. After all, I'm his mother. Her tone was completely nonchalant. The Montague family breathed a collective sigh of relief, and Sylvia secretly hid the letter she was holding behind her back. It was the letter Fletcher had given her at the factory by the river to give to Tansy. During the month Tansy was in a coma, in an attempt to wake her up, Sylvia, on the doctor's advice, had opened the letter and read it to her every day. Even so, Sylvia wasn't sure if Tansy had heard. So, she had originally planned to give it to her as soon as she woke up. But now, it seemed, that was no longer necessary. Tansy was discharged that evening and moved into an apartment in Star River Bay. That apartment had once been her and Fletcher's marital home in their previous life. The next day, a lawyer from Tang Nyan Tech came to visit. According to Fletcher's instructions before his death, His personal assets of over 50 billion USD, as well as all his shares in Tang Nyan Tech, were to be transferred to Miss Tansy Thorne, free of charge. Tansy became the actual controller of Tang Nyan Tech. Tansy calmly and cooperatively completed all the procedures. She didn't even ask who Fletcher was, or why he was giving all this to her, or where he himself had gone. On the afternoon the assets were transferred, Miranda Quill submitted her resignation to the group's board of directors. Tansy saw her, her eyes red and swollen. "Stay, I'll give you 5 times your salary." "Tansy, I will never be your employee in this lifetime. There is only one founder of Tang Nyan Tech. If you still have him in your heart, then stay and help him watch over the business empire he built. The day you forget him, if you want to resign, I won't stop you." After saying that, Tansy turned around. Miranda watched her retreating back, her eyes widening. Weren't the rumors saying she had lost her memory, that she had forgotten everything related to Fletcher? Then how did Tansy know that she had Fletcher in her heart? When Tansy got home, she took a shower, sat down at her desk, and took out a blank sheet of paper. The letter Fletcher had left for her, every time Sylvia had read it by her bedside, she had heard it with perfect clarity. Now she could recite it by heart. On the day she woke up, she had a dream. Fletcher stood before her, smiling, and said, "Tansy, it's time to get up. Take care of our child, take care of our Tang Nyan Tech, and don't let the people who love you worry." Tansy pulled her thoughts back to the present and, stroke by stroke, carefully wrote down the contents of the letter. "Tansy, this morning, watching you sleep, I really couldn't bear to leave. Last night at the bar, I heard a song with lyrics that made me feel a little sad. Praying to heaven to spare a pair of lovers, that the things we fear may never come to pass. Looking back, our happy times together were so brief. I haven't held you enough, yet I have to say goodbye again. I'm sorry, Tansy. In the end, I still lied to you. When you told me to put my own safety first, I knew I couldn't do it. But I also knew how stubborn my Tansy is. From the moment I was reborn, my only goal in this life was to keep you safe. I didn't do a good enough job in our last life. I let you experience that fire and explosion, which left you with psychological trauma. Do you know how much my heart aches every time I watch you wake up from a nightmare? Reborn, all I wish for is for you to live a life free from conflict, pain, and sorrow, to live happily and peacefully. Whatever Tansy wants, Fletcher will do it without a second thought, even if it costs him his life." End of story.